Welcome to Investors Guide. You're watching ET Now. I'm Fede Souza. Thank you so much for tuning in. On this show this week, we're going to answer a very important question from a particular investor. What happens when you put all of your savings and all of your future earnings into a home through a home loan and a down payment? How do you manage to cut around the corners and make enough money to set aside for your other goals? If you find yourself in a similar situation, all you have to do is pick up a pen and paper and write down the advice you hear on the show. If you have more questions, of course, you can get in touch with us. Our email ID is at the bottom of your screen. On the show this week, where should you invest your money, especially if you're going to put all of your cash into a home? In our product review, we take a look at the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief 96. And should you invest in a pension scheme for your retirement needs? That's later on the show. It's time for me to bring in Kumar. Dhirendra, thank you so much for joining us. It's a very interesting run-up to Budget Day, as always. And it does seem like we've had slightly choppy markets up till Budget Day. I want you to tell us what your expectations are, first of all, from the budget in terms of anything that we can expect in taxation or, in our personal finance sort of an area. And also what you think the market's reaction will be to those fiscal deficit numbers that we're expecting.
I actually have no expectation from this budget for individual investors, except for tinkering with things which will require things which require realignment for a long time. Maybe a concession for the long-term retirement savings plan. That has been the need for the mutual fund industry. That has been the need for this savers of this country. A mechanism to channelize their long-term savings into the market. I'm not looking at anything magical. I'm looking at maybe reduced number of provisions and simplification of many of the things the government does.
All right, and of course you know that on Budget Day between 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening, we'll be right here on this channel helping you understand everything that was announced and how it impacts your finances. If you'd like to join us in the studio on that day, feel free to write to us on the email ID that's at the bottom of your screen. Dhirendra, let's get through it. Our first question on our portfolio section. Anup Pandey has written in from Bangalore. He's 30 years old. He's married, no children yet. A monthly take-home of 90,000 rupees, expenses of 62,000 rupees. He also tells us he gets a quarterly bonus of about 45,000 rupees. Now, he doesn't have a term cover right now, and I'm not very pleased with that. Or he doesn't have a health cover either. And he has 2 LIC policies, which I don't think do much for him. So I don't know if he should be holding on to those policies. But this is the thing that bothers me the most about this email. He tells us he will have a home loan that will start ticking in August this year with an EMI of 40,000 rupees. I don't see what part of his income or his savings this EMI will come out of, because it doesn't seem like he has that money to spare. And he's concerned also about managing to save for his retirement and for his other goals while paying the home loan. He also tells us he'd like to ideally pay off this loan in the next 10 years. Now, this is the question, Dhirendra, for any investor, and a lot of investors find themselves in this position. The idea of buying a home normally soaks up every spare rupee that they have in their finances. What should someone like this do in order to fit that home loan into his budget right now, and also perhaps still manage to save and invest some money?
He requires more streamlining. But more importantly, you have just no choice but to scale down your needs. In terms of, a house which will require 40,000 rupees EMI for next 15-20 years, you need to really settle for a smaller house so that the EMI, or maybe, postpone your buying decision to a point when you are able to put a larger down payment. It's very simple, you need to spend less than what you earn to be able to save, and that is very important. Investment is postponed consumption. And there is a phase of your life for which you have to prepare for a long time. Let's
assume he, for the sake of argument, manages to set aside some money, either by putting off this home loan or putting off this home purchase, or by settling for a smaller home. Ideally, what would you like him to do? Because I don't like the fact that he has no insurance whatsoever, no health insurance, no life insurance, and not a single saving to speak of. He has some fixed deposits, he's told us over the phone, that he's going to break to use as a down payment. He has no equity whatsoever in his portfolio. Where would you like him to start?
The moment he has built his, he has bought his home, his need for term insurance will go up, because you want a situation that if you're not around, the house is still there. For that, you need a home loan linked insurance term cover. whereby the amount of cover actually comes down as you keep repaying a part of your loan. So besides this thing, I don't think he has any window to save for his retirement, and he should not worry about that. I think the only option he's left with, that he should focus on his career, try and work towards enhancing his income.
Dhirendra, if he were to start one equity fund of a small amount, say 2,000 or 3,000 rupees a month, would you give him one name that he could use?
I think he should choose one of the funds from our stable growth portfolio, somebody who has never invested in any market-linked investment. It's very important for him to get used to it, get used to the volatility of the market, and should start SIP in one of those funds.
All right, so that's the advice you're getting right now. Our stable growth portfolio is on your screen. Pick one fund, start a small investment, 3,000 rupees a month, 5,000, whatever you can spare. And of course, you're going to have to squeeze your monthly budget in terms of expenses to really make all of this happen. You know we're here to help you if you need anything else. Let's take another question. Akshay has written in on behalf of his mother. She's 75 years old, Dhirendra. She receives a monthly income of 40,000 rupees from pension and rent. And he wants help to save tax for her. He does all of her investments for her. And that's a really nice thing to do, Akshay. We're very happy to hear that. He tells us she has 11 lakh rupees in fixed deposits, 7 lakh rupees in the senior citizen savings scheme, and 5 lakh rupees in the post office monthly income scheme. One of her fixed deposits of 8 lakh rupees will mature. He wants to know what he should do to that money to save tax on the income that it will generate. He's saying a debt mutual fund, which can be held for 3 years, is that the ideal way to go about it at this point? Dhirendra, what would you recommend? Actually, given the fact that we are possibly in a reducing interest rate cycle at this point, what would you recommend someone like him does?
I would like to give two answers to this question. One is a quick answer, that is debt fund a good way to invest if you are investing as a substitute for bank fixed deposit for next 3 years? Yes, it might be opportune. Interest rates are set for a rate cut in coming times, and so investment in debt fund will benefit from that. But I would like to look at his mother's portfolio holistically. And for somebody who has a income stream, the income from pension and rent is 40,000 rupees a year, and that actually lands her into the tax bracket, which means all other savings are basically long-term savings, though she is 75 and she would like to have a fairly safe investment. But a long-term investment, I think it needs to be approached a little differently. Either he should be work on some equity allocation. Rest of the money is just sitting there, and it's a long-term investment which is into fixed income. And over the last 5-7 years, it has actually lost value. But you don't get a sense of it because you are getting your interest income, and that interest income is also taxable, the form in which it is kept. Even the interest income from senior citizen savings scheme also is also an income. So that actually forces you to put your money in, make a tax saving investment every year. So from that standpoint, I would say that consider it, some definite defined allocation to equity. Have liquid fixed income investment that will also work nicely as your emergency allocation.
All right, so we hope that helps. And if you have any more questions, you can get back in touch with us. Dhirendra, we have another question from a retired viewer. Aftab has written in. Both he and his wife are government employees. They will retire soon. He says they will receive a monthly pension of about 65,000 rupees each. They don't have to worry about health insurance because, of course, being central government employees, that's looked after, and they'll fall in the 20% tax bracket after retirement. Now, this is the question they have. They both have PPF accounts that will mature in a couple of months. He wants to know, does it make sense to extend the PPF account by 5 years and continue to hold it without making any fresh contributions? Or should he withdraw that money at this point and reinvest it? Because he said there are conflicting advice he's getting. Some people are telling him that after retirement doesn't make sense for him to hold a PPF account, and some others are telling him use it as your emergency account, because after the 5 years, even after you extend it for 5 years, you can still pull out at least the interest amount or keep it there as a as sort of a quasi-fixed deposit. So he wants to know what the two of them should do with their respective PPF accounts.
No, one is that, first define that what is likely to be your consumption need, and is your pension good enough to take care of that, which means that your investment in PPF or the accumulation in PPF is a long-term investment. Now, there are two ways of looking at it. If you have, you can well look at it as an emergency fund, but if it is a large accumulation, I don't think it should be lying in a PPF account, because PPF, though safe and the income is tax-free, but it is not growing fast enough. And in your retirement, you definitely have a need for protecting the worth of your capital, more so at a time when your income from your pension may not keep pace with inflation. So to supplement that income, your capital must be at least keep pace with inflation. For that, it has to move up. You have to move that money into equity.
But Dhirendra, for someone who then needs to take that sort of a conservative view on equity, would you recommend either our stable growth portfolio or our conservative portfolio?
I would urge them to consider only stable growth portfolio or the conservative portfolio, and seriously consider not having your long-term accumulation lying in the PPF account, a large part of it.
The advice you're getting right now is to keep only as much as you need for emergencies in that PPF account, but ideally you should be moving some of your money into equity to beat inflation over the long term, which is a larger risk if you're looking at the next 20 years or so. Feel free to get back in touch with us if you need anything else. Coming up after the break, Dhirendra will stay with us. We'll talk about the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief 96. Does it still make sense for you and me with its long history? What does it mean for us as investors at this point? On the other side of Good Evening. Welcome back. You're watching Investors Guide on ET Now. Thank you for staying with us. Dhirendra Kumar is still with us. It's time for our very popular product review. And this week, we're looking at the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief 96 Fund, especially for those of you who haven't done your tax saving yet. You've completely run out of time. So we're going to find out if this one makes sense for you. Avan will give us the numbers first. Avan.
Thanks, Faye. Now, especially for investors who are still seeking tax saver investments, this week, we talk about the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief 96 Fund, the oldest among all tax saver funds in the market. The fund was launched in 1995 as a close-ended fund and was converted into an open-ended scheme 4 years after its launch. In the first 3 years, the fund was a blockbuster performer, and after that, its track record has been patchy. The fund outperformed in the 2003 rally but failed its investors with a mediocre performance in 2008. And compared to its peers, the fund does not get the Hall of Fame status. The fund concentrates on sectors like automobile, engineering and chemicals and has delivered returns up to 28% since its inception. Now, for investors who are seeking a tax kick under Section 80C, should you make a fresh investment in this fund? Let's find out. With that, it's back to you, Faye.
All right, Avan, thank you for that update. Well, Dhirendra, talking about the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief 96. Now, true to its name, it's one of the oldest funds in the market. It's old enough to vote, really. So looking at its track record, and it's had some very, very good years, and it's had some sort of moderate, middle-of-the-ground average years, where would you place it right now if you were looking at the returns, especially over the last 1 year?
No, I don't think one should be looking at 1 year return of a tax saving fund, because your minimum holding period has to be 3 years. From that standpoint, yeah, of course, this is not a disappointing fund, but it has never been a great fund in the last 8-10 years. Before that, it was a blockbuster. In fact, its first 3-4 years, while it was Alliance Capital Tax Relief, in its early 3-4 years, it turned out to be among the best performing fund. Looking at the whole, choice which investors have, this may not be the best choice. It has beaten its benchmark by a modest margin in 8 of the 10 years. It has, it has also been an above-average fund when we look at long-term performance numbers. But compared to options available to investors, they're a superior choice.
Right, this is a superior choice. In fact, the last time we reviewed this fund, you gave it 3 stars. It's 3 stars on value research as well. Where would you place it on the show now?
I would again assign it a 3-star, even based on, despite its recent relatively superior returns. 3
stars there for the Birla Sun Life Tax Relief Fund on Investors Guide. Let's move on to our hold or sell segment. Daniel Thomas has written in, Dhirendra, he's a 27-year-old NRI, and he tells us he'd like to invest in Indian mutual funds for the next 15 years. He has a high-risk appetite, and he's picked out the funds that he would like to invest in. He has a couple of other questions about his tax liabilities, but first, let's take a look at the funds that he's picked out. A total investment of 63,000 rupees. SIP is running for the next 15 years. Right on top, HDFC Top 200. Rather, for someone who's investing for 15 years with, an aggressive outlook, this might not be the best pick for him, would it?
Yes, it's a decent fund. It's a very high quality fund, but it has become large cap tilted. I would say that it is the kind of fund, or maybe HDFC equity might be a superior choice.
But the next fund on his list is the UTI equity fund, Dhirendra, possibly better suited for someone with a 15-year time horizon. Should he continue with this investment?
Yes, even UTI equity is a very promising fund. It has sustained its performance and has been very impressive in the last 4 or 5 years. Should continue with it.
So the next on his list are Quantum Long-Term Equity and ICICI Prudential Value Discovery. I know you approve of both of these choices, but given his profile and his time horizon, should he continue?
Yes, given his profile and time horizon, I think he should continue, and I think these are the kind of fund which should have a large allocation of his monthly savings.
There's a couple of mid and small cap funds on the list: SBI Emerging Businesses and Franklin India Smaller Companies. He also has Reliance Small Cap. He seems to be a young man who follows our advice quite closely. Would you recommend all three of those mid and small cap funds?
The core of his portfolio, the earlier 3-4 funds, those returns can be supplemented by his positions in these ones. But he needs to be, right now we are only looking at, investing right now is relatively easy when you are looking at very impressive numbers over the last 2-3 years. But that has not always been so. These funds could be extremely disappointing in a struggling market.
Well, last two funds on his portfolio, I'm not sure if they suit his profile that well. He has HDFC Prudence and the SBI FMCG fund, Dhirendra. First of all, does he need to have the balanced fund given his time horizon? And secondly, would you recommend the FMCG fund really? Because we normally tell investors to stay clear away from all thematic funds.
Yes, he should not have the FMCG fund. Though FMCG in particular is a category among the sector fund which has not seen a bad phase, because in the worst case, they do little worse than the market in a rising market, and in a struggling market they do extremely well. So overall, one is never disappointed with FMCG funds. And when you have all the other funds that you have listed, you don't need an FMCG fund. Likewise, for your 15-year time frame, you don't need a balanced fund. You should be looking at your fixed income allocation or your emergency fund elsewhere from this mutual fund portfolio or your equity portfolio. And you should not, I think, HDFC Prudence is a misfit here, though it's a great balanced fund.
Well, Dhirendra, very quickly, he has another question. He's asking us that since he's going to be investing for the next 15 years, when he comes back to India as a resident and decides to pull that money out, what sort of tax will he have to pay? Will there be STT? Will there be TDS? Will there be income tax? Well, the truth is there's not going to be any income tax because as of now, equity funds are tax-free after 1 year. But in terms of TDS and STT, is there a separate treatment to his income as an NRI?
No, one important thing for an NRI is that he should be investing in the growth plan. Because if he chooses to invest in the dividend plan, then for NRIs there is a TDS, which is a withholding tax on the dividend to be paid to them. So that is what he should avoid. There is an STT on your investment only when you redeem your investment from mutual fund, unlike stocks where you pay STT. But the amount of STT, the levy of STT is very nominal now. So I don't think it is much of a bother. Equity investment besides agriculture income is the only tax-free realization that you can have. All
right, Dhirendra, many thanks for answering our questions on this show. We look forward to having you back again next week. Coming up on the other side, we'll talk about what you need to do to save for your retirement, what pension plan suits you best. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Investor's Guide on ET. Now, we brought in Gajendra Kothari to answer the questions you sent in on asset allocation. Gajendra, thank you for joining us. Our first question comes in from 59-year-old Rajiv, who writes in from Kuwait. He wants to invest for his retirement. It's a little late in the day, Rajiv. You're not going to be able to do a great job in terms of accumulation or in terms of compounding. But what he's done, Gajendra, is shortlisted the HDFC pension scheme. Now, what he has to do is pay an annual premium of 5 lakh rupees for 5 years, after which it will generate a monthly pension of 30,000 rupees from the 6th year onwards. He wants to know, is this a good scheme? Well, Gajendra, it doesn't seem like the best scheme in the market, although it is an efficient way to do it. What would you recommend he does?
Though the name suggests it's a pension plan, normally we don't recommend to buy a pension product from a life insurance company, because these kind of pension plans comes with a lot of charges, and they invest in very safe and secure instruments. So in the long term, these instruments may not be able to beat inflation. Though they will give you some kind of pension throughout your life, but actually when you would receive the pension will be so meager that you may not be able to beat your monthly expenses. So I would not recommend you to go for this policy. If you want to create your own pension corpus, the best way again is through a mutual fund SIP. Basically every month you need to invest this amount till your retirement. In retirement, when you achieve a good amount of corpus, then you can start something called SWP, which is systematic withdrawal plan. That is nothing but every month you start getting a fixed amount from your own portfolio, which works like a pension amount. That will be a far better strategy than going through a pension plan, because here you have control on the entire amount, and in the end you will receive much better return compared to what these kind of policies would give it to you.
Our next question comes in from Miguel, who tells us he invested in the IDBI Federal Guaranteed Return Fund in September 2010 with a time horizon of 10 years. He's been holding on to that investment so far. It was a single premium amount. He's not very happy with the way it's performed. He wants to know what he should do. Should he hold on to that investment? Gajendra, a couple of things to worry about. Normally, anything that offers a guarantee also comes with a charge. Also, if it's offered him a guarantee, it might not be as flexible with him pulling the money out. What would you recommend he does?
Since you've invested in a pension product, and in a pension product, the problem is that when you want to surrender, though this is not a good product as you rightly mentioned, though it was a one-time product which you've already paid, so rather than now wait for another 10 years, I would rather recommend you to come out as soon as possible, because in the long term you can expect around maybe just 5 to 6% return on this kind of a product, because your money goes in basically a guaranteed return fund. So rather than continuing, if you wish to withdraw, unfortunately you will not get the entire amount right now, because in the pension product you have two options: either to withdraw 33% right now, which you'll get as lump sum, and the remaining 66% you need to put in some kind of annuity product wherein you get monthly every month. That is the best option available to you. So I would rather suggest withdraw the 33% amount and go for an annuity from either this company or any other company.
Our last question comes in from Shamik, who has a term cover of 1 crore rupees, but he has two insurance policies that he's very unhappy with. He has the LIC Jeevan Shri, which is a traditional endowment policy, and he also has a ULIP, which he's unhappy with, from ICICI Prudential, the ICICI Prudential Assure Wealth Plan. He wants to know, can he surrender both of these policies, and what happens if he surrenders? Well, Gajendra, the thing that most investors should remember is that an insurance policy is a legal contract. So once you get in, and each insurance policy is different in their terms and conditions, and what you will get back, what the surrender value will be, what charges they will charge you, it's important for you to take a look at what money you will make at this point if you were to pull money out of any of these insurance policies. Gajendra, what would you recommend he does?
First of all, the good thing is that you already have got a term cover of 1 crore, which is a very good amount. So you should keep this amount. The first two policies which you mentioned, which is LIC Jeevan Shri, this policy is a traditional endowment plan. So in this policy, your money is invested into some kind of a debt products, and over long term, you get, if you don't die in the maturity, you get something around 5 to 6% return. You purchased this policy in June 2005. You've already completed 10 years and 15 years further to go. I would rather recommend that you may kind of wish to come out from this policy, though you may be incurring losses because you may not be getting more than what you paid, but it will still be better to come out with losses and then invest into maybe a kind of a mutual fund for another 10 years, wherein you can expect around 12-13% returns. And in the end, I think you'll be far better off than what you would be getting in the same policy. With regard to the ICICI policy, the moment you complete 5 years, come out of this fund, because then you'll have no surrender charges, and that money also can be invested again into a diversified equity fund, wherein you can expect better returns going forward.
All right, that's a wrap on Investor's Guide. Thank you so much for watching. Gajendra, as always, it's lovely to have you on the show. Remember, if you have a question about anything at all to do with your money, write to us. Email ID is at the bottom of your screen. You can also reach me on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching.